Hi, everybody, and welcome, Mass MAGA community. Hope you're doing well. This is David Lopez, and this is season one, episode 8, believe it or not, of the Mass MAGA podcast. It's dropping in October of 2025. And the objective of Mass MAGA, very simple, is to educate, motivate, and encourage people to participate in the political process here in Massachusetts. So today we have a very, very special guest by the name of Brad Wyatt. Among many other things Brad's doing, very busy guy. He's a Massachusetts Republican National Committeeman. He focuses on data modeling, identifying and recruiting local muni candidates. And welcome, Brad. It's great to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me on, David. Glad to be here.
Great, great. So, as I said before, the objective is to educate folks and to motivate them to get involved. So, I always like to ask guests, really, how did they get started in the political space, and maybe just give a little bit of your history, and we can go from there.
Sure. Well, I didn't major in political science in college. I majored in computer engineering. So I took a path a little different than most that get involved in politics. I did major in computer engineering and I worked at a startup. And then I went back to my father's manufacturing company in Worcester. And we retooled the company with some new software and barcodes and stuff like that. And we manufactured diamond cutting products. You might even see some on the wall somewhere around my office. But we did some good things there as a factory. But I couldn't make it work in Massachusetts. We had the highest healthcare costs, highest energy costs. We had all these stupid lawsuits and rules and regulations that didn't apply on elevators and stupid things. And I got fed up. I couldn't make a profit. And I tried to talk to the politicians, Democrats, Republicans, everybody, and nobody seemed to care. So I sold the business. The company that bought it basically shut down the manufacturing. And as I moved on in my life, doing some real estate development after that, not just in Massachusetts, but in other places, I said, well, I want to try to give back and try and change the process, try to make the funding, the not funding, the business a lot easier for small business. And so I got involved in politics, and I quickly realized that the Democrats didn't care at all about trying to help us, and the Republicans, some of them cared, some of them didn't, but they were so disorganized they couldn't figure out how to win. Let me turn my phone off for a second. And I realized like data, just like you use in a factory for your sales and for your leads and for tracking stuff is critical. Well, it's the same thing in politics, but nobody was really using solid databases, good data to really track voters, know their voters. So I got involved. I volunteered. I didn't get a paycheck, and I just helped other people try to get elected. And then in 2014 or 2009, I ran for school committee, and I won. I had a daughter going in kindergarten, and it made perfect sense. And I learned door knocking is super important. I learned how campaigns work at the local level. And then for the next 6 years, I served on the school committee, and I learned how important state government is to funding our schools and our towns, and how the whole funding process works and taxes to fund that. And then I ran for state rep in 2014. I lost for that, but I learned quite a bit. I ran against a 20-year Democrat incumbent. He was a veteran, very well liked. We did a very respectable 55-45, but I learned a lot of lessons about what it takes to win and how to target voters even better. And so from then on, I've just been trying to help candidates from one part of the state to the other part of the state, and we've had some really good successes.
Fantastic. That's a great success story overall. And it's great to have a business mindset in politics. I mean, I think that is so key because, business people just look at it differently, profit loss, risk assessment, and the whole thing. So, we like to be happy warriors, right? The other side, they don't seem
Yeah.
too happy sometime, right? And that doesn't make for a fun life. But my question would be like, what do you most enjoy about being in this space?
I love working with the people, the candidates, especially the good candidates that are coachable, and the young men who help out on campaigns and trying to mentor them to grow and learn and do things the right way. Sort of like being a teacher, you can train people how to do things, how to target, how to mobile, how to model, how to use door knocking, how to use texts, how to use digital, and just watching these young people really grab these tools and run with it and then do great things. Oftentimes they leave Massachusetts and they work in other states, but showing them how the digital and the modeling works and then seeing them use it elsewhere, it just makes me very happy. Along with the fact that we occasionally win and we're the underdog, and that's always a great feeling.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel the same way. I feel like we're part of a special group, like almost like the underdogs, but the pirate in a good way, right? We're viewed as that, and it's a lot of fun to be on that side of things. So Gen Z, Brad, is so important, by the way. I was an advisor I mentioned on the podcast a couple of times with the Babson Republican group, and they have 60 members, and there's a lot of action in the colleges, and that's really, really great. So what advice would you give someone just starting out, in this space, whether they're Gen Z and, that's 18 to 20, whatever? What would you kind of advise them at this point?
That's a great point. We all start out, whether I started out learning at 30 or they start out learning at 20, we're all starting out learning. And so we should try to learn as much as we can about how campaigns work. We should understand the policies that we're talking about so we can be coherent about them. But I always like the campaign learning. There's some great groups like Leadership Institute, Young Americans for Liberty, Turning Point. But those guys offer training, oftentimes free training, to learn how to win campaigns. I'm always, not always, but I'm often shocked when I talk to a candidate who says, I got my signatures, I'm on the ballot. And I go, how many votes will it take to win? And they can't answer the question. They don't know. They knew enough to get 100 signatures or 200 signatures, but they never understood what it takes to really win an election. And so I think if people do more training with Leadership Institute, I would check them out. And occasionally we do trainings around Massachusetts. There are some tools we use at the Mass GOP, like Numenar and Rumble Up, and I like to teach people how to use those tools. Excuse me.
Yeah, so that's great. And it's so good to see that generation active and pushing back in the colleges and pushing back against, peacefully, of course, against demonstrations that are happening out there. It's very encouraging to see that group. So myself, I've been a lifelong Republican here in Massachusetts. Only involved in the political space maybe for the last 3 to 4 years. I'd vote Republican, they'd lose, I'd go on with my life, and but
Yeah.
now I'm more involved as you are and many other people. So what significant changes have you seen here in Massachusetts surrounding the conservative movement in like the last, maybe 5, 6 years or so, roughly?
Well, the candidates themselves, some of them are really coming to the table with more knowledge because of the trainings and the classes that we've done with Foundation for Applied Conservative Leadership, Young Americans for Liberty. So they're coming with a little more knowledge on what they're getting into, and when they do that, we have a better shot of helping them win. Some of the big changes I've seen technology-wise is if Facebook ads that run on Instagram, those are like a penny, penny and a half each, and you can actually target the exact voters that you're targeting, like 2,000 or 10,000 voters. You can upload that and target them. YouTube is phenomenal now. It's a great way to get your message across. You can get about 12 seconds of attention for a penny. There's a lot of people that use YouTube on their phone or even on their TV at home. So I see a lot of technology changing with that, and I see the candidates, starting to be more trained on how they're going with it. And I always like to say that we don't lose in Massachusetts because we're too conservative or not conservative enough. We lose because we run crappy campaigns. We don't know our voters. We don't raise the money to talk to our voters. I do have to say one of my pet peeves is when people say they're going to run for office and they don't have $100 to put in the campaign. I'm not saying you have to be, Jeff Bezos to run for office, but you should be financially stable enough that you can support your campaign a little. Because if you can do that, other people will see that and they'll jump in and contribute. I think it's a fool's errand to try to run for office without, the means to do so. And I know that may sound like elitist, but that's the reality we live in. Facebook ads aren't free, mail isn't free, texts aren't free. And so I think a lot more people are becoming more cognizant of what it takes to win and have a solid campaign plan before they announce they're running for office.
So that's a great point. I mean, people can be, pumped up and angry or whatever their motivation is, but like anything else, any marketing campaign costs money. There's bootstrapping, there's guerrilla marketing, but you know, Facebook doesn't take bootstrap, right? I mean, they take
Yeah,
cash. Um,
you're absolutely right, David. We don't win because we don't lose. Our ideas are the right ideas
Yep.
that should be winning races. Our ideas are the smart ideas. Capitalism instead of socialism, freedom instead of tyranny. Criminals should be put in jail, not let go with no bail. We have the right ideas, yet we lose at the ballot box. Why do we lose at the ballot box? We didn't communicate those ideas. And at the end of the day, this is a marketing exercise. And we have to train our candidates and our campaign staff and our people to be expert marketers so that we can deliver that message and ultimately win on election day.
So that's terrific. So I have an entrepreneurship background and, teaching it and MBA in entrepreneurship and all like that. So, I mean, just to pick up on what you just said in terms of putting money in, just for the heck of it, let's just say like a municipal, and we'll talk more about municipal elections in a moment or two, but just like a generic municipal election, let's just say select board for the heck of it. Let's say someone has $1,000, and they're just starting out. It's not a ton of money, but that's startup investment. Where would you allocate that initial grand? Let's say you have 3 to 6 months or whatever to ramp up, but where would you kind of place that $1,000 initially?
That's a great question. The first thing any candidate should do is set up their campaign plumbing. And what I mean by that is they should have a logo that's branded, they should have a website, and they should have some lawn signs. Not a ton, but just a couple that they could use for pictures and stuff like that. All that probably runs you less than $300. And so then you're left with the rest of the money to do what you want with. And quite frankly, a Facebook ad, if you have a larger municipality, is going to cost you a penny for an eyeball. A text is going to cost you 5 cents. So you should do the modeling, figure out which voters you need to talk to that are likely to show up, and then send them a text with your logo and a lawn sign and some other people supporting you, and then just make phone calls to them to remind them to go out and vote. You don't need to be Jeff Bezos to run. You just got to play smart.
Right. No, thank you for that. So, I mean, working with startups a lot, they would raise some capital and then ask, well, where do I allocate it? And, even helping them to fundraise, if they couldn't explain to me, the answer to that question I just asked you, like, what are you going to do with the money once you raise it? That raises concerns, right? So this is really, really important. So it doesn't take $1 million to get in. So $1,000, you can allocate 3 to 500 strategically. You have a little bit on the side to get the momentum going.
Yeah, and don't forget, it takes political capital to make political capital. So as you're spending this money and going out there and you have your website with the donate page, some people will actually click on it and they might even like you and like what you stand for and chip in 25 or $50. So it's not a zero sum game. If you do this right with solid campaign plumbing, with a nice logo, lawn sign, push card, you have the ability to actually make some money back. And so these people will support your campaign. And that's a good thing.
That's terrific. So, I mean, I love the entrepreneurial spirit of this. I think we have to kind of generate that and kind of spread that thinking around to candidates. One thing to have great ideas, it's one thing to be angry and to fight back, but it's a business like anything else. You're a product and you're a startup, you got to market it and you got to just, build it from there.
Yeah, speaking of marketing, not only do you have to market to the right person with the right message, but now you have to do it at the right time. Because with early ballots, you've got vote by mail, you've got early ballots, and you've got election day. And so every voter is usually a creature of habit, and they pretty much vote the same way. And so you've got to make sure your mail for your vote by mail people that it lands before those ballots land. Likewise, when the ballots land from the town clerk, you better have a text going out to them. And this is all just an orchestrated formula to try to build your name ID and get your message across to these people all at the right time. And you have to do that. If you don't do that, you're probably going to lose.
Mhm.
Like if you send your mail out on October 25th and the ballots landed on October 1st, you just lost 6,000 votes in Worcester because they didn't get to see your mail.
Gotcha. So that brings up another issue of like a campaign manager. So we think about campaign managers at the national level and regional, Senate, and everything like that. How important is a campaign manager at the sort of local level at this point? And what should they be doing, differently at that town or city level?
I think more important than a campaign manager is a campaign plan. And, I have my standard template for a budget timeline for somebody running for office, and they should email myself or the party, and I'm happy to send it to them. And then we customize it for whatever office they're running for. So if you're running for a town with like 5,000 people voting and there's 2,000 likely voters, it'll look like X. If it's three times that size, it looks like Y. So just like, the Bible says you measure before you start building, it's the same thing here. You figure out how many voters you need to talk to, and then you figure out how you're going to talk to them. But having a plan in place before you announce is the smartest thing you can do, because being angry is not going to win. Being right on the issues is not going to win. Having a campaign plan that you kick around and you execute, that can get more votes than the other side. Because at the end of the day, lawn signs don't win elections. Your friends don't win elections. Door knocking doesn't win elections. More votes than the other side wins elections. And so you've got to figure out how to market yourself to more people than the other guy.
And so people can reach out to you, Brad, I mean, with these different
Oh,
questions.
absolutely. Anybody can reach out anytime. It's just bradwyatt@gmail.com. And I'm more than happy to help set you up. I've negotiated with the state party to get, a free system called Numenar for our candidates. So with Numenar, they can go in and build lists of their voters and expected counts. It's a really valuable tool. And it also allows for canvassing, which, by the way, is free. It's just the candidate's time. And so by using Numenar, you're at the cutting edge of making it easy to target the right voters. And the other tool we have is Rumble Up, where we've negotiated a great rate, less than 5 cents for every text, and that includes a picture. And so again, if you knew when you wanted to send a text, you send us the text, we put the picture in it, you send us the picture, we send you a draft text. If you like it, we send it out, you just pay us for it. So those are some of the tools we have at the Mass GOP. So we don't actually, well, I don't have the ability to give money to a candidate, but those tools are valuable if used properly.
Yeah.
And when I had my factory, I always said my goal is to give my employees the tools to do the job they need to do, whether you're in the hot press, the cold press, the diamond room, the laser room. And so I wanted to give them the right equipment so they could do their job. Well, that's what I'm trying to do at the national committee spot. I'm trying to give our candidates, our campaign managers, our activists the tools so they can execute their job, which ultimately is to win races.
So let's just chat about, thank you for that. So let's think about it like in terms of the hierarchy. So as the national committee man, I'm still learning the system here a little bit. What is that function? Like, is that a liaison nationally to the Mass GOP? Like, how does that really work for our
Sure.
local?
So the Massachusetts Republican State Committee elect a national committee man and woman and a chairperson, and that all three of us have votes in the RNC for the leadership of the RNC, and that's an important vote because leadership does matter, But more to the point, we also get to be on some committees at the RNC. So I'm on the Election Integrity Committee because I care about making sure we have fair elections, and I'm the head of the technology working group for the RNC. So we can look at the technology used in elections. I'm very concerned about early voting and, believe it or not, Uokava voting, which is people voting overseas by email. I think we have enough tough times with early voting and vote by mail. Voting by email adds up another layer of complexity to this. And I know it was done for our armed forces overseas, but I just think we need to put some guards around it to make sure it's not abused. But those are some of the things we do at the RNC level. And then, of course, we're networking down at the RNC, so we're trying to bring resources, i.e., money and good consultants and good tools, back to Massachusetts.
Awesome. So that's a great honor to be in that position. And
It's
everyone's
volunteer,
yeah,
volunteer position.
right.
It's
Well,
costing me a lot of money and time. Trust
I
me.
bet, I bet. But let's talk about the Mass GOP, like as we go forward. So Mass GOP ups and downs over the years. I mean, it is what it is. It's a limited organization, limited budget. We understand that. It's a tough environment. But I guess the question would be, what would the priority, to your knowledge at least, what would the priorities be for the Mass GOP we have municipal elections coming up next month, and then beyond, governor's race next year.
Yeah, well, I think, you're really not going to go far without a farm team. And to me, it's those municipal races that we have in the spring are very important. And I also think the city races in the fall are very important because if you want to win the governor's race or statewide races, you need to do well in the cities and you can't ignore them. So we need to get in and be active in the cities and try and win some of these races in Brockton, in Worcester, in Lawrence. And we have some great candidates in all those. And we're providing the Numenar data, we're providing the texting backup, and we're trying to help however much we can help. But we have to try to win those local races because those people we get elected locally, they may rise up and be a state rep candidate someday, but more importantly, when there's a statewide candidate, they'll be endorsing the statewide Republican rather than their opponent, should they win, endorse the statewide Democrat.
Gotcha. So I'm a big fan, Brad. Maybe fan's not the right word, but I believe in the potential of the RTCs and RCCs in a big way. I was a chair in Stowe, a few years ago, and I just look at these as little franchises that have the ability or the potential to influence policy at the local level. And, among other things, charitable events, of course, and, recruiting and so forth. Some of them live up to the expectations, some don't. Just like any organization, it depends on the leader, et cetera. But just what is your take, at least on the potential for the RTCs and RCCs, and where do you see them going as drivers for our?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of the RTCs. I think it makes a big impact when you're organized locally. And I think with the RTCs, we have some tools to help them. So I've created Numenar instances for some of the RTCs, and people can get in and build lists of likely Trump supporters. We Trump supporters, there are people, we need to get them out to vote Republican and to join our RTCs and get involved in pro-life and pro-Second Amendment people. The same thing. So we built these tools in Numenar for our RTCs to take advantage of. But again, it comes down to leadership. There's probably only about 40 or 50 RTCs that are taking advantage of it. Maybe some don't even know about it. I think of it sort of like as a trial right now. We're getting them involved. But we've done some things in some towns where they've had a Proposition 2.5 override. And we've used the Numenar system to target our voters and worked with the RTC that we could send out texts and stop that. And it was valuable that there was an RTC there. Otherwise, they would have had that override. We've done the same thing with the 3A. We've pushed back 3A in at least 3 different towns that I know of by using the modeling, using Numenar, working with the RTC, and putting some texts out there. So there are things we can do, and I want to try to encourage the RTCs as much as possible. And it's election season now, so it's a little hard in October. But after this, I really look forward to doing some training. I think we do have a training coming up sometime this month on how to use Numenar, but I really want to train as many leaders that want to learn on how to use it to maximize their RTC and grow.
Terrific. Yeah, I think so. What is it? 391 cities and towns, whatever it is, something, whatever the number is.
361, I think. Yeah.
61, excuse me. And so the last count I saw was maybe 160-ish RTCs, give or take. So
Yeah.
there's room to grow. I know with the limited time and resources, do you feel that the Mass GOP is trying to expand that number a little bit, or is there a
Well, I
strategy?
think they're hoping they expand, but I mean, unless somebody does any work, I don't know if it will. And it really comes down to in some of those districts, the state committee people.
Right.
We can't be everywhere. I can't be everywhere. But if I know there's somebody in Stowe working hard or Worcester working hard, I'm going to give them my attention. I'm not going to go digging around in a town where there's no leadership. But the state committee people really should be trying to get an RTC up in every town, so
Yeah.
that way we do have that leader. And sometimes those leaders will grow into the role and they'll start using the system and seeing, hey, this is a lot easier than I thought. Hey, here's how I can get a list of the Republicans in my town. Hey, we've got a school committee race. We should probably try to, fix this up now so that we're ready to attack next year.
Gotcha. So it's really I'm still learning, as I mentioned, but it's the responsibility of the state committee man and woman to look at their district and kind of recruit and drive activity.
Yeah, I sort of look at it like geographically. It's sort of their domain. If somebody comes into Worcester, I would hope that they would call me and I could tell them where to go, what to do, and who to talk to. And it's the same thing. If it's their district, I would hope that they are on top of it. And if they're not, somebody could ask them, hey, can you try to create an RTC somewhere? but I'm not going to, go digging around for people. I got plenty of really great activists that need help, and I'm going to help them.
Yeah, right. So the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? I mean, if
Absolutely.
somebody's already doing it, you're just going to help them to get to the next level. Makes total sense. So you talked a little bit about the voter integrity, and so there's a great organization. I'm sure you're aware of the massforfairelections.org with Jeff Cohen and Edie and others. Are you involved in the voter rolls? I think you mentioned that when we ran into each other in Worcester recently.
Yeah, so my role with the voter rolls is now that I'm the committee man, I have standing. And so the Secretary of State, I have a decent relationship with them. And so they'll give me the voter file, and they've promised me that come next cycle, I'll get the daily update at 8 o'clock every day. So that way we can take people off the rolls that have already voted. And if they haven't voted yet, we'll know about it. And if they've requested a ballot, we'll know about it. So I think we're building a good relationship with the Secretary of State there. They did give me the data, and I took that data and I sent it down to the RNC, which is working, I think, with the Department of Justice
Mhm.
to try to maintain like not a national voter file, but just see if there's any voter fraud between the states, like somebody voting in one state and another state. So they have our data. They're evaluating it, looking for voter fraud. I don't know what they're going to find down there, but they have visibility to the other 49 states, and let's see what they get. I do get a little scared when I hear about voter fraud in Massachusetts because having really looked at this problem for a while,
Mhm.
there's a couple things that are really clear to me. One, people are registered in more than one place at a time. That doesn't mean they vote in more than one place at a time.
Mhm.
And it's really hard to keep a 100% clean voter roll because there's 351 different town clerks that are doing it and maintaining that roll. And some are doing a great job and some are doing not so great. And it's very hard to hold them accountable. They work for that town. They don't work for the state. It's a problem on the voter registrations. However, if we look past the voter registrations to the actual votes, I think that's where we can make an impact and see if there are votes showing up that are illegal or fraudulent votes. And that's what I'm looking for is fraudulent votes. But we have a small problem. If you're an accountant, you understand that the books have to balance.
Mhm.
They have to reconcile. I reconcile my credit card statement, I reconcile my bank statement. You got to reconcile. And when I say reconcile, what I mean is you have an electronic poll book that says 900 people voted, yet you were reported 1,000 ballots turned in. To me, that has to be fixed. And I've been told by the Secretary of State they're working on a software upgrade that will allow that to be fixed for next spring. And I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, and let's see if we can fix that. But I don't think it's fair to have an election where you're saying these 900 people voted, but yet you counted 1,000 votes.
Right.
That just does not seem fair. I don't know if somebody stuffed an extra 100 votes in there or if they came in through email or wherever. But it needs to be accounted every single vote so that it reconciles. And the number of people that said they voted matches the number of votes reported. And that is my number one goal for the spring with the Secretary of State. And right now, I think we have a decent working relationship with them.
Good.
And let's keep it that way. And let's try to get some fair elections for 2026. And I don't know what I could do about the past anyway.
Yeah.
If I was upset about 2020, I don't know what I could do because I know people said the election was stolen. I do have to say, I'm not sure if they need to steal elections in Massachusetts. They have a pretty good machine in the cities.
Yeah.
We're going to try and break that machine. We're going to try and do some ballot chasing ourselves. But I'm not sure I've seen the voter fraud in Massachusetts at the scale at which people like to say.
Yeah.
And I'm always encouraging anybody, if you have a specific case of voter fraud that you can show me, somebody voting twice or somebody didn't vote, let me know. But from my standpoint, they just go out to the projects and they go door to door, help them get a mail-in ballot, and then they help them fill out their mail-in ballot when it comes out, and then they help them return it. And unfortunately, that's not voter fraud. That's just good electioneering.
That's
You know,
hustle.
yeah, it's hustle. It's good electioneering, and we're hopefully going to try and do that. I think we have some governor's candidates that are very well funded, and I suspect they'll have a ballot chase program just like the Democrats have. And for the first time ever, we'll have the data on who is getting a ballot and who hasn't returned it yet. So I think the pieces are there for us to actually, perform like the Democrats do.
Terrific. No, I think that I agree with all that 100%. So, we just have a few minutes left, Brad. I really appreciate your time today. I know you're running around and doing all kinds of great things. So, it's a little early in the cycle, but with regard to the governor's race and the Senate race for next year, obviously there's a few different candidates going in there. Probably not at the point to endorse absolutely at this point, but just general thoughts, where we stand here a year out.
Sure. Well, you know, uh, when we look at candidates, I work with a group called Young Americans for Liberty, and they say a candidate has to pass a test. And the test has to be they have to be principled and they have to be credible. And the principles mean they agree with the principles I agree in. And the credibility means they have a chance to win, which includes part of they have to be able to raise the money to deliver the message. Okay. And so when I look at candidates running statewide in 2026, those are the two things I look at. Are they lined up with me on principle? And are they able to win and fund? And it's really early in the thing to see where they line up on principle. So it's sort of hard to say that. But I do like the fact that there are some candidates that have the resources to fund a race. And in fact, I know one super PAC reached out for me for one of the races. And I think that's a good sign that they have some resources that they can be competitive. And right now, I think the average voter is not going to vote for a short sleeve or Minogue or Keneally without knowing that Maura Healey is terrible.
Hmm.
And we have to get those ads up there on TV to make it ubiquitous that the forest is burning, and that's how we start. And we stop two pipelines, all the stupid things she's done, the Healy hotels. Somebody is going to have to put that up on TV, on digital, on radio, and just drag her through the mud for this to be effective. So I don't think it really matters which of the three candidates, but whoever can get that message across that Maura Healey has destroyed Massachusetts, and that takes money.
Gotcha. Great. Brad, one last final thing. Any words of wisdom for the folks, the Mass MAGA community out there to be happy warriors, or any, just a little pump up message?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll say don't be frustrated. It's really, really, really easy to get frustrated in Massachusetts. I would say try to campaign with a friend, so at least you have somebody to commiserate with. But when in doubt, ask an experienced hand at how things work, and remember the source, but ask people what is the best way to do something. What do you think? How we can grow our RTC? How can we win this race? Ask. Don't just jump to conclusions and be like, hey, I'm going to buy some radio ads and I'm going to win. Just ask. We're sitting here willing to help, myself, many others. Just ask for help and we'll do the best we can to point you in the right direction. But I think there's a Bible verse, in harvest, we will can't remember it. I'm all tongue tied today. I think I need a glass of water, but in due time, we'll reap the harvest. So, keep working hard, and in the end, we win. And I do have to tell you, we are in a lot better position than we were 2014. And I'd point out one other thing. From 2014 to 2024, there's 200 state legislators and there's 170 Democrats, a supermajority up there, and they're up every 2 years. Do you know the Republicans lost? No incumbent Democrat lost to a Republican challenger since 2014 until Justin Thurber did it in Fall River. And I think that was, I hate to say it, not the mass GOP, but that was the Donald Trump effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think things are changing. And if we can ride that wave, grab some of the city vote, and let them know that the Republican platform, the Republican Party, is the place they need to be, we're going to win in the end. So don't give up. That's my big thing.
That's
Don't give up.
fantastic. Brad Wyatt, thank you so much, and for your time and everything that you do on a daily basis. We appreciate it greatly. And to the Mass MAGA community, go to massmaga.com. The podcasts are up there. That's a resource for all of us. We can submit candidate information, RTC information, any websites, Facebook groups. You can just submit them right there, or info@massmaga.com. There's a Mass Maga GOP account on X. Reach out to me directly, David Lopez, info@massmaga.com. Brad, thanks again, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having me, David. Have a great day. Take care. Bye bye.